Alright guys, hope you're all doing well. Before I start this one, I just want to say rest in peace to Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and all the other people on board the helicopter crash yesterday. I believe there were 7 other people. It's just really tragic, and my condolences to all the families and the loved ones that are affected as a result of this. I actually played basketball for 6 years, from the ages 11 to 17. I even got to the point of being offered a contract for England, and my inspiration as a kind of a young 16-year-old was Kobe Bryant. I mean, he was the best player when I was growing up. For me, he's the GOAT. He always will be the best player. And yeah, truly sad news. And, yesterday I had a bit of a moment in bed where I just thought about all the people that I love that I don't tell them, or at least I don't tell them enough. So, treat every day as if it's your last day. Tell your family, your wife, your kids, whomever you love, make sure they know every single day that you love them, because life ultimately is only borrowed, and it can be gone at the flick of a switch. Now, with that out of the way, over the last 2 weeks we've learnt about how gear is going to be changing with the update after episode 3, how recalibration is changing, and what skill tiers are and how they're replacing skill power. Now today I wanted to talk about whether these changes are going to be enough. Is there anything missing that I'd like to see, and what the future looks like? So let's begin with that. I want to start off with this poll that I ran on my channel a few days ago. I asked, with Gear 2.0 recalibration and skill tiers now covered, what's your impressions of the overhaul? And as you can see, from nearly 2,000 votes, 45% of you said it looks good, followed by people not being sure, and then people asking when it's coming. And to be honest, this is pretty much exactly what I expected to see, in that order. Now, if you watched my 2 impression videos so far of each state of the game, you will know that on paper, I'm pretty excited with these changes announced so far, and of course, some people, they're not going to be too happy. And I think that's to be expected though. I think on one side we have the people who think these changes will oversimplify the gear game, making kind of min-maxing builds far too easy for everyone, and ultimately affecting hardcore players more than anyone else. On the other side, you have the people who see the flaws in the original gear design, the budget system and all the other things, and see these changes as a step towards a much better gear game in the future. And I'm certainly way more towards these changes being good, but for sure, I've got my reservations too, and I think you'd be naive not to at this point. So with that in mind, did we get enough? And if not, what was missing? Let's take a look at some of your comments. So the most upvoted comment on the vote talks about lack of content, and no matter what they do to the gear, it won't change the fact that we simply have no content to play. And I think this is absolutely the most important thing we need to hear about. No surprise why this was the most upvoted thing on that vote. And regardless of how many changes the devs make to gear, even if the devs made, the perfect gear system that everyone was happy about, if we do not get lots of replayable PvE content and PvP content, it will arrive and it'll be completely dead in the water. There'll be no hype, no one's going to return, and that'll be it. The devs did say this is going to happen. They said that this update will drop as one big package with new content like activities, new things to chase like gear, weapons, that sort of thing, I presume, and with a new gear score. And I guess like most things though, it's easy for us to completely ignore this because we've yet to actually see any of this new stuff. The devs have previously said it's all in good time, but I think I'd probably disagree here. The longer the community waits for this new stuff to be shown, the longer it takes for them to start talking about it, YouTube videos start coming out, and the longer it takes for people to get interested in the game again. This game does not have time on its side, so I like to see some urgency around revealing what sort of content we can expect with Gear 2.0. Episode 3, it's going to add very little to the game in respect of content. We already know it's just narrative-driven content, just like the first 2 episodes, so it's going to do nothing to actually fix the content issue. This is why Gear 2.0 is coming afterwards, and by all accounts, pretty soon afterwards as well. In next week's State of the Game, or this week's State of the Game with the recording of this video, the devs will be talking about Episode 3, which is fine, but I'd much rather they start talking about and revealing what's coming afterwards. And with all due respect, no one really cares about what's coming with Episode 3, I don't think. How about the devs put Episode 3 out at the same time as the big package update? And I think this would be much better. Now, for me to sit here and say that I think they're lying about this gear, about this stuff coming, I don't believe that at all. There's no way the devs have listened to a year's worth of feedback on the gear game and they've not heard a year's worth of feedback about content. So I absolutely believe that we are going to be getting significant content coming with this update. But the content needs to be that. It needs to be content. It can't be narrative-driven missions. It has to be actual content, stuff that we can replay over and over again for PvE. Stuff that, like what we got in the Division 1, like Resistance, Survival, all of that sort of stuff. If we get that stuff, it's going to be excellent. Year 2 is going to be awesome, and this gear game will hopefully supplement that. But you can't have one without the other. And we know we're getting the gear stuff, so you have to have content with it. I think we'll definitely get it, but it wouldn't be the first time I've said something's coming and it hasn't come at all. If we put content aside, because everyone knows how much this is needed, I don't think anyone is oblivious to how much content is needed in this game. Was there anything else you think was missing, or was it enough? Did we get enough from these last 2 State of the Games? Leave your comments down below. One thing that was recently confirmed on Twitter by Frederick Thylander is the removal of weapon type damage from gear and from mods. The only place you'll be able to get weapon type damage in the update will be from brand talents, like 10% assault rifle damage from Fenris and from the specialization trees. And I suspect that each brand of gear will have some sort of weapon type damage talent. Otherwise, you're probably going to find that everyone is running Fenris and assault rifles, because I can't see there being any other way for you to get that 10% extra damage. So that will basically become meta. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. I suspect that what we have seen is not everything. Like most updates, it won't be until we actually see the patch notes before we know everything. So at this point, they've given us pretty much what's coming, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that they don't talk about, a lot of stuff that will come out that we don't hear about, and I suspect that we're probably going to get a PTS, I imagine, for the gear changes. So it'll probably be, all of this stuff will probably be picked up in the PTS. And just as a side note off my script here a little bit as I'm talking, I believe we are getting an exotic backpack. Now, I'm not totally sure, but for the last 2 streams, they've said exotic backpack twice. And I don't think that's a coincidence. So my question is Ninja Bike coming back? Because if it is, that's going to be awesome. Now, what I would love to see, and this is something we've been asking for since the Division was launched, and that's a companion app. One of my main issues right now is I just simply don't have a lot of time to actually play the game. Get on there, do missions, play PvP and all of that stuff. And that's kind of exasperated by having to take most of my time in the game making a build, farming the gear and then spending half of my life in the UI making a build. And that's fine because it's a loot shooter and that's what you should be doing. But I'd much rather do that stuff when I'm out in the day, say for example on my lunch at work or walking back to my car or whatever it might be. I'd much rather spend my time not at my computer playing the game, actually sorting out those builds, theory crafting, all of that stuff, and then actually come home and play the content with the build that I've made outside of the game. It works really well in Destiny. In fact, most of my time when if I'm going to go and play Destiny and I'm considering a build that I want to use, then I do that outside of playing the game. Like I said, on my lunch at work, walking back to my car, whatever it might be, but outside of the game. Then when I come onto the game, I've got that build made, and I can get on and I can just test it out straight away. I don't have to spend an hour or 2 figuring out these builds, and then by that time, I'm not actually going to play the content because I haven't got enough time. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. I know it'll take a lot of cash to develop, and I expect this to be at the bottom of the list, if not on the list at all, because we've talked about it before, and they've said it's not something they would consider for now. But it would be really nice. Is it that important? Probably not. I mean, we've got much bigger issues, but if we're just talking about things that I would like to see, this is one of them. Over the last 2 State of the Games, we've heard very little about PvP, and it doesn't surprise me at all. Now, the changes alone, they're going to make a huge difference to PvP, but what won't change, unless the devs actually focus on it, is just, how boring PvP is, whether that be Conflict or the Dark Zone. Now, if you're new to my channel, or even if you've been a subscriber for, say, the last couple of years, you probably think that I have no right to talk about PvP because you would probably never have seen it on my channel. Yet, when the Division launched, for a good year or 2, I used to run with the same squad in the Dark Zone every day, and I played a ton of Conflict as well. Played Conflict solo, Dark Zone solo. I just played a lot of PvP. Now, I am a PvP player at heart, but the Division 2 PvP is just not good enough. When I'm not playing the Division, at the moment I'm actually playing a lot of Path of Exile, but if I want to play a game, I'm generally playing Modern Warfare, and I don't think Modern Warfare is a very good game, but it's PvP, so I'm playing it. Destiny, when I get onto Destiny, I don't do any PvE content. I get on there and I play PvP. That's what I like to do, but the Division 2 PvP is just so bad that I never even consider playing it at all. And it would be nice to see how the devs plan to address this part of the game. New modes, that would be cool. New maps as well. But I really want to see some skill gap return. If you're a great player in the Division, you could abuse critical save, medkit pop, and everything else to absolutely dominate. PvP in this game, it doesn't really have that at all. And it's gone from fun, hectic, and somewhat unbalanced to boring, slow, and then very unbalanced. At least in the Division, you could have fun. But I really feel like this game has lost all of that and more. The devs said that they are working on something for the Dark Zone, and Frederick has previously said on Twitter that they are focusing on the Dark Zone being an endgame PvP activity, the most brutal PvP mode in the game. And if they can truly go back to this and balance the game better, I can see PvP thriving with Year 2. My only concern is that the skill gap, it's just never going to be there like it used to be. Whilst the devs have confirmed that skill deployment times will be reduced with the update, they're not going to be going back to any kind of instant medkits or anything instant at all, really. And like many things, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Oh, and before I finish this video off, where are Redstorm? We've not actually heard from them in a very long time. I actually don't remember the last time we heard from them. And my concern is that are they even working on the game anymore? I actually follow them on Twitter, and most of the time when they tweet, it's about someone drawing an artist thing of something completely unrelated to the Division. I appreciate they've got other stuff on, but I haven't heard a peep from them about PvP. And it would be nice for them to actually make an appearance and just remind everyone that they're still working on fixing PvP. Although, with how it's gone so far, I wouldn't mind if a new studio just came in to freshen it up. If they said to us on Wednesday, by the way guys, Redstorm, they're not working on this anymore, we've got this new development company coming in to work on it, I'd be pretty excited about that, because if they alone solely worked on PvP, well, they did a very bad job. I mean, you just look at the last update when we were given the was it the deathmatch type game mode? That's kind of group deathmatch game mode. I can't remember what it's called, Team Elimination. I mean, that was the last game mode that anyone ever wanted. I mean, the game is already too, slow and trying to be something it's not. And to add like one of the most boring game modes there is, essentially like a competitive game mode to a game like this, it just shows you how far they are from what the community wants. In fact, if you speak to most PvP players, all they want is they want the Dark Zone to be great, and they would like a large-scale PvP mode like Last Stand was in the Division. That's what people want. So, maybe you can give us some of that, and maybe Year 2 for PvP will be good. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Thank you very much for watching this one. If you stuck around until the end, I really appreciate it. Wednesday, we got State of the Game, which is episode 3 and the new specialization. So if you haven't turned on notifications and you want to make sure that you know that everything that's coming, then please turn on notifications. I will have a recap video out around 6 to 7 o'clock BST every Wednesday. But with that said, again, thanks for your support, and until the next one, guys, epic out.